Today on the show, you and I discuss Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon's blackface experience, plus what we can do about institutionalized racism.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
You know, there are white people who are in no way, shape, or form prejudiced. There are white people who don't have a discriminatory bone in their body. There are white people that don't judge on the basis of color or religion or race or any of the above. That are, in a way, worn out, tired of the idea of racism. Why are people calling me out for my white privilege? I keep my head down. I'm good to everybody I meet. I've never contributed to anything racist or awful or prejudicial. And why do I have to be told I'm part of the problem? I didn't contribute to institutionalized racism and all the... And in some ways, I understand this. I've been told I have white male privilege on more than one occasion. I was told by... It's a weird story. I was told by Rose McGowan, you know, the Charmed actress who played a big part in taking down Harvey Weinstein. I was told by her, this is the weirdest thing. She followed me on Twitter. Why, I'm not entirely sure. But we actually got to chatting a little bit, and I'll never forget. This was right around the time that Donald Trump had been elected. And I was like, what? Rose McGowan followed me on Twitter? Thanks for the follow, Rose McGowan. And she DM'd me and like, yeah, what you doing? I was like, just working. What are you doing? And she was like, I'm waiting for the world to end. And, you know, she was convinced that the world was ending because Donald Trump had been elected. And I remember writing back to her, you know what? I don't care who is president, because I'm really, as much time as we spend talking about politics on this show, I'm completely apolitical. I don't believe in Republicans or Democrats. I believe that they are Coke and Pepsi, brown fizzy water that you should steer clear of and avoid at all costs, generally speaking. Politicians, that is. You got to participate in our version of democracy. But nevertheless, buying into the idea of this two-party political system, anyways, those are just my beliefs. So I remember telling her, you know what? I believe in people. I believe in Americans. I believe that we're fundamentally good, and I'm optimistic about the future, regardless of who's president of these United States of America. And my, what do you call it? My avatar, my profile picture on Twitter is a cartoon. It's this amazing sort of Charlie Brown style cartoon of me and Milhouse, my puppy, that somebody drew for me, which I love. And well, you can't tell who I am, I guess, from that. And she was like, are you a white male? I was like, yes, I am a white male. And she's like, that explains your optimism. And I was like, there I am, just being nice, trying to get along and be decent to everybody that I know, and I get called out on my white male privilege by Rose McGowan. It was one of the more surreal things that's ever happened to me on Twitter. And we continued to chat a little bit. But I remember going, yep. We're still a ways away from equality. And I was reminded by the fact that our friend Shelley Wade, who was on the show last week, who is African American, and whose parents were both African American, said that her mom, and Shelley's about my age, her mom was actually, when she was a little girl, arrested for not giving up her seat on the bus to a white man. That's just like one generation back. You and I, we've grown up in a day and age where people have learned to be, if they're racist, if they're prejudiced, ashamed of it. It's something that they do quietly, in hushed tones, when no one else is looking or listening. Blatant, overt racism, or prejudice, or sexism, or any of the above, has been branded wrong by society. So these things have been relegated to back rooms and quiet conversations. You can't just walk down the street being racist. Someone's going to pop you. But it wasn't that long ago. Our friend Shelley Wade's mom, arrested when she was a kid for not giving up her seat on the bus to a white person. And there's numerous instances of this, whether they be societal, scientific, advances in technology. I think sometimes we forget how far we've come and the amount of time in which it's happened. Not that long ago, we were all trying to get local access numbers when we were traveling so that we could dial into our America Online accounts. We were getting those little startup CD-ROMs, which seems absolutely archaic to anybody that has been connected to the internet and an adult or an internet user since the year 2000. The idea that we didn't have broadband in our lifetime, freaking crazy, but nevertheless, it's true. We did not. So it doesn't matter if it's technology or prejudice. These memories that seem like ancient history that have nothing to do with us, they're actually a lot closer than we think they are. The hurt, the wounds, the effects on direct members of our nuclear families, like Shelley Wade's mom, we're not that far from all that. We are ashamedly not that far from a time when a little black girl was arrested for not giving up her seat on the bus to a white man. Which is why I'm interested to talk to you about Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon next.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So like I was saying, there's a lot of white people. A lot of white people that keep to themselves, aren't racist, aren't prejudiced in any way, shape, or form. Just go through their lives and, well, get a little worn out when they hear about racism. I've seen it time and time again. People who get frustrated, I think, because they go, oh, why are people telling me I'm privileged? Why are people telling me I've got to do something about institutionalized racism? I'm really good to everybody I meet. I'm just trying to be a good person. Why do I have to? How is this my problem again? Yeah, why can't people just kind of get over it and move on? I mean, racism isn't that bad. And I've been around many of these conversations with people who are great people, who are not racist, who are not prejudiced, who are just, I think, doing the very best that they can with the tools that they've got and feel strange and uncomfortable that they are somehow being held responsible for the existence of racism in the world. You're a decent human being. You have malice in your heart toward no one. And people are accusing you of doing something or not doing enough. And it's something that you run into a lot in 2018, 2019, when issues of race and division keep coming up over and over and over again. And you know what? As I pointed out, this stuff still exists. I mean, it's been relegated to quiet conversations and back rooms, and generally speaking, unless it's a bunch of idiots marching with tiki torches, you're not going to see open, brazen displays of prejudice, hate, and racism. Generally speaking, people know they've got to keep that stuff to themselves if they want to not get their ass kicked every single day of their life. But the hurt that racism carries with it, the hurt that prejudice carries with it, that's not gone. And like I said, people have to keep their racism secret now. They've had to go underground with it. But a couple years ago, it was open. It was blatant. It was, the law. As we were saying earlier on the show. Shelley Wade, our friend, who is on the show pretty often, last week was saying that her mom, one generation back, was arrested when she was a little girl for not giving up her seat on a bus to a white man. Which is insane. Freaking insane to think about. Our parents, if you're around the same age as me, were doing the whole flower child thing. They were hippies in the 70s and 60s. And, well, what a lot of people don't realize is 1968, the height of peace and love and all of the above. That was when people that weren't white in America were really fighting for that open equality. Martin Luther King happened in our parents' lifetime. In a lot of cases. Martin Luther King had a very simple dream of equality. Martin Luther King instilled in America by saying, I've got a dream that little white boys and little black, or whatever, kids of different colors can play together and it won't be a big deal. I paraphrase, of course. But at the time, that was some radical thinking. Now it's become the norm. But we're not that far away from a time where it would have been unimaginable. And I think that a lot of the time, those of us that fall into generation X, Y, or Z have a very, very difficult idea comprehending that. Because it's so far from our way of thinking, but that doesn't mean the hurt and the scars are gone. And this has never been as clear as it was this past week just gone by, when the idea of blackface came up. In case somehow you missed it, blackface appears to be all the rage in Virginia, at least among two of the state's most prominent Democratic politicians. Governor Ralph Northam and Attorney General Mark Herring, they both recently admitted to wearing blackface years ago. And you'd think that all the late night hosts would be jumping on that. But apparently, a couple of them aren't. According to the Washington Times, Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon have largely avoided the subject. And you know what? As much as this expression is a little on the nose, if they were to call that out, that would be pot calling the kettle black. Because they've worn blackface too. They did it right out in the open, on TV, in comedy skits. Not that long ago. In 2019, it's absolutely unthinkable, unimaginable. It's not a good look. It's not something that they would do on TV now, but they did it not so long ago. Kimmel did it twice. Kimmel did it twice on The Man Show back in the day. Dressed as Oprah and as basketball star Karl Malone. And that paradigm of political correctness that all-knowing, all-seeing barometer of what is and what is not okay. Saturday Night Live had Fallon doing blackface not so long ago when he was impersonating Chris Rock. And people are also bringing up what happened on The View just a few years back when Joy Behar showed a picture of herself at a Halloween party in the early 70s. She had dressed up as a, quote, beautiful African woman, in her words, and she admitted that she used makeup that was, quote, a little bit darker than my skin. And you know what? There's actually a list. Virginia's not a one-off. There's a growing list of celebrities and lawmakers who got in trouble over blackface. Louisiana House of Representatives candidate Robbie Gattle dressed like Tiger Woods for a church event. South Carolina County Council candidate Brant Tomlinson dressed as a Jamaican bobsledder for a Halloween party. Former Florida Secretary of State Mike Ertl as a Hurricane Katrina victim at a Halloween party. You do the math, Hurricane Katrina not that long ago. Actor Ted Danson, while roasting then-girlfriend Whoopi Goldberg and repeatedly using the N-word. New York State Assemblyman Dov Hikind, who dressed like a black basketball player for a Jewish holiday. Jimmy Kimmel, like we said, dressed as Karl Malone on The Man Show. Jimmy Fallon, Chris Rock on Saturday Night Live. Paula Deen and her son dressed as Lucy and Ricky Ricardo from I Love Lucy. Robert Downey Jr. in the movie Tropic of Thunder. Gene Wilder in shoe polish in Silver Streak. Drake, who was revealed to have posed in blackface when Pusha T used the photo as cover art for his single. Joni Mitchell, who appeared in blackface on the cover of her 1977 album, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. In 2019, all of this is absolutely unthinkable. What were you doing? What were you thinking? What were you saying? But to those that would say, well, how is this our problem? I'm a good person. I'm not racist. Well, racism isn't a thing anymore. Look how recently all this was happening. And then dig deep and try and understand the world outside yourself.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
So, yeah, Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon, they've been staying pretty quiet about all the blackface-loving politicians in Virginia. Governor Ralph Northam and Attorney General Mark Herring both recently admitted to wearing blackface years ago, and you would think that all the late-night talk hosts would be going crazy about it, but apparently they've avoided it. According to the Washington Times, Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon have avoided it because they've both worn blackface too. Now, the evidence is out there. You can see it on YouTube. It's not difficult to find. People, like I said, also bringing up what happened on The View a couple years ago when Joy Behar showed a picture of herself at a Halloween party in the early 70s. She had dressed as a beautiful African woman, in her words, and she admitted that she used makeup that was, quote, a little bit darker than my skin, end quote. And there's that extensive list of politicians and of celebrities who've gotten in trouble, sometimes not gotten in trouble, for wearing blackface. To Jimmy and Joy, freaking insane. You realize what can happen when you dress like that? You could be clubbed to death by Liam Neeson. And also, you could be a party to some very real hurt. I mean, I don't think anyone ever went after Billy Crystal for doing Sammy Davis Jr. in blackface. People do risky things in the name of comedy. There are, of course, a lot of people saying, hey, did Robert Downey Jr. sort of get a pass for his blackface role in Tropic of Thunder? Well, there's an interesting spin on that situation, and that is Jamie Foxx asked Robert Downey Jr. to do blackface in Tropic of Thunder. And I did a little bit of digging, and we talked about this on the air a little bit. There was something written by this guy called Anthony Collins, who is, well, this is what he said. I don't claim to speak for all black people, but I absolutely loved Robert Downey Jr.'s role in that movie. His character to me was actually the best part of the movie, and I really liked that movie as a whole. What really amazed me is how spot on his portrayal is. Although purposely a little over the top, I still have trouble not seeing him as an actual black dude. My mind simply has trouble with the fact that Robert Downey Jr. is actually there. Lincoln Osiris could definitely have been someone from my neighborhood growing up. But the other comments are correct. And part of what makes the Tropic of Thunder situation a little different in the eyes of a lot of people is that it was directly dealing with the issue of blackface in movies and explaining why it's a problem. A whole lot of that movie, Tropic of Thunder, to the best of my understanding, is making fun of the ways in which Hollywood thinks about itself and pointing out ways in which their apparent virtue is absolute, complete, and total hypocrisy. So there you have it. It was something that Robert Downey Jr. was asked by Jamie Foxx to do. And it was to directly deal with the issue of blackface in movies. So is Robert Downey Jr.'s blackface role in Tropic of Thunder deeply offensive? Well, here's the thing. As a white guy, it's not for me to judge. And it would appear that due to the events of this past week just gone by, people are starting to look at that with fresh eyes. And when you do dig in and look at it with fresh eyes, you realize that it's a nuanced situation. And it was, in its own way, using comedy to deal with the hurt that comes with the use of blackface in Hollywood and the hypocrisy of the Hollywood establishment that would tell you that they've got the moral high ground for some bizarre reason. But you know what? Generally speaking, if you think you're going to pull off something as nuanced and erudite as Robert Downey Jr. and Jamie Foxx working together carefully to make a statement, something that is still, like I said, up for debate, that no, you're not, we're not. People could argue forever about whether or not blackface is ever acceptable. But let's you and I just draw the line in the sand now and forever and say, no, it's not. Blackface is not acceptable, not for any reason. If you must portray a black character for any reason, I don't know, you can get a black person to do it. And that's really not the issue. That's not why I bring this up. It is an issue, but the reason I bring all of this up is because it's a perfect illustration of something that was, well, sort of acceptable an alarmingly short amount of time ago. Not something that I ever could have imagined I would have ever done. Not something that ever would have felt okay. I think the reason why, as a kid, without knowing any of the history of it, I always found it to be kind of unacceptable, was because, well, it seemed to me like such a diminishing caricature. Yeah, that's it. It seemed to negate people. It seemed to not take into account anything other than the surface. And for that reason, it never felt okay to me. You know, I never really got racism. Like I said, I was brought up without any prejudice. I never met racism face to face until I was probably, like I said, in about the 9th grade, 10th grade. It was the first time I ever saw somebody be racist, and I was shocked and horrified and appalled and couldn't even imagine that this still existed in the world. I thought this was something that got done away with thanks to Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln, and we were all equal and we could just move on. And I was amazed to see it play out in front of me the way it did, as I was talking about earlier in the show. But I do remember there was this one time, and if you've been listening for any length of time to this show, you might recall that I've told this story in the past, but I wanted to do talk radio at one point. I wanted to do talk radio. I wanted to be on the air doing talk radio. But I was not necessarily an obvious choice for talk radio in general. Why? Because I was a rock radio guy. I was on all these rock and alternative stations, and even though I really wanted to do it, even though I had the skills to pay the bills with regard to being able to spin and yarn and do what has to be done to increase ratings when I got on the air doing talk radio, when a job opening came up once at a talk radio station many years ago, I went for it. I applied, and I thought I was going to get it because, well, everybody I knew went, oh man, you're really great. Oh, when you're on the air, boy, you pick up these meters. That's how we measure ratings these days. And you hold on to them, and you can really, you know what you're doing with this talk radio stuff. Yeah, there's more to you than just talking between Chili Peppers and Metallica songs. You should get after this. I had real world proof of the fact that I was qualified for this job that I was applying for. And not only that, I had ratings like you wouldn't believe. I don't like to brag, I don't like to boast, but this is the sort of thing that you put on your resume. I have been, many times in my career, the single most listened to alternative rock DJ in all of America. I'm good at getting people to hang out with me on the radio. I think probably because I just love it. I love sharing time with you. It's the greatest thing. I think people pick up on that, and for that reason, a lot of people listen. And so I had it all going for me. I had proven that I was good at talk radio. I was a very successful on-air personality. There was every reason why they should give me a shot at this job and no reason why they shouldn't. And I remember applying for this job thinking I was definitely going to get it. Thinking it was mine. It was a no-brainer. I mean, on paper, look at my resume, look at my ratings history, look at my ability to spin a yarn and entertain people and hold on to those personal people meters that win or lose radio stations millions and millions of dollars in ad revenue. I'm money, and I knew it. There was no reason why I shouldn't at the very least get a shot at this gig. And, well, not getting the job, getting the door somewhat unceremoniously slammed in my face, and then finding out why gave me a little insight into a world that I never really understood. You walk these streets most every day. You waiting to get washed away.
Now, more AD on the radio.
So like you and I have been talking about, there's a lot of white people that would say, I'm not prejudiced, and they wouldn't be prejudiced. They would be loving and inclusive and not judge a single person based on anything other than the content of their character, pay no attention to the color of their skin, their nationality, their religion, their sexuality, any of the above. There's plenty of people that keep to themselves and do nothing to contribute in any way, shape, or form to any kind of hate or prejudice. That kind of get worn down, go, why am I being told that I've got white privilege? I'm good, I keep to myself. Why do I have to hear this? And the reason why it comes up is because, well, that hurt. That hurt isn't that far in the rear view. And little by little, we'll get further and further from it. And little by little, we'll get closer to true equality and true freedom for all. But as much as we like to think that we're there, we're not. You and I might be there. And we might be going, I do all I can to treat everybody equally, and it's not even that big of a deal. I just treat people equally. Why am I being held accountable for institutionalized racism and all the... The hurt is so close. Like I said earlier in the show, our friend Shelley Wade, African-American, her mom, one generation back, her mom, when she was a kid, arrested for not giving up her seat on a bus to a white man. Unfreaking real. Little girl arrested for not giving up her seat on a bus. This wasn't hundreds of years ago. This wasn't in Abraham Lincoln's day. I don't know who was president, but that woman is still alive today. That woman is a modern woman. I talked to Shelley about how she FaceTimes with her mom and text messages with her mom. And, well, someone that is using smart devices in the digital era was also once arrested for not giving up her seat on a bus to a white man. This stuff is not that far in the past. And like I said, I had this experience when I was trying to be a talk radio host. I mean, we've been doing this for years. The show's been on for 5 years or so, but it took years for me to get this show on the air. I wanted to do talk radio. I really wanted to do talk radio. I love talk radio. And like I was saying earlier, there was this job that I wanted. I didn't even want the job. I just wanted a shot at it. I wanted to prove myself. And like I said, I don't like to brag, but this is the sort of thing you put on your resume when you apply for a job like that. I was back then, and I think still am now from time to time, depending on how ratings are, the most listened to alternative and rock music personality in America. A lot of people listen to me. I'm on a lot of radio stations. I'm good at getting radio ratings. I'm good at being on the radio. And I wanted this job in this town where my ratings were humongous, through the roof, massive. And I'd been allowed to do a little bit of filling in here and there when people had been out sick and whatnot. And people went, oh, you're really good. You know how to spin a yarn. You know how to keep people engaged. We can see that the meters are going up, and there you go. And so I applied for this job, and I was like, it is so mine. This is a slam dunk. This will absolutely be mine. This isn't even a question. I'm going to get this gig. Oh, just go ahead and give it to me now. I suppose you could glance over my resume, but you know it, I know it, we all know it, that there's no one better for this job than me. And you know what? I don't think there was someone better for that job than me. But I didn't get it. And by the way, the person that did get it, horrible. Stank up the airwaves and went down in a burning flame of a 0 share. Which, by the way, means absolutely no one's listening. but the other person just made a little bit more sense on the surface. And I remember asking, why would they give this job to someone that wasn't me? Why would they give this job to someone that would stink up the joint like that? I don't understand it. I'm kind of angry. And I was taken aside by someone that said, look, you're so talented. You're good at this. You are eminently qualified for this. More people listen to you in a day than listen to this radio station in a month. But look at you. And I was like, look at me. And I'm like, well, the folks upstairs, they see you as this rock guy. They see you as this overgrown 12-year-old that should be skateboarding outside 7-Eleven parking lots still. With your long hair and your backwards baseball cap and that little piercing in your lip. They're never going to let you on this buttoned up talk radio station. Even if you could rock the joint and bring them ratings gold and millions in advertising dollars after the fact. And I went, wait a second. Is it because of the way I look? And he's like, well, it's your whole image. Yeah, I suppose, yes, it's because of the way you look. It's how people perceive you because of the way that you look. And I went, oh my gosh. Because of the way I look. And I'll never forget it. I went to bed angry. And I woke up angry. And I went to bed the next night angry. And I woke up angry, steaming mad, outraged. I was discriminated against because of the length of my hair and the fact that I wear jeans or shorts and a baseball cap instead of the talk radio outfit of a sweater vest and a tie and all these other. I was like, and then I realized something. In hindsight, in retrospect, after I spent about 2 weeks going to bed mad and waking up mad, having been X'd out of a job that I was completely qualified for, that I deserved. More so than the candidate that was hired. That I've been X'd out of this job because of my outward appearance. But you know what? I could, if I wanted to, get a haircut, start wearing those sweater vests and those ties and those slacks and all the things that make people go, yeah, you're now a talk radio guy. I could just cut my hair and look different and it would be over. But the anger, the hurt that I felt being judged for my external appearance and being shut out of a job I deserved because of that made me think I could get that haircut and that sweater vest and, well, things would change. But that amount of anger that I felt, imagine if that was due to the color of my skin and not my haircut and my sneakers. Imagine that level of anger that I felt when it happened to me once in my entire life. And if I'd been through all my days on this earth in that way, being judged, being thought less of, not getting the job that I deserved because of something I couldn't control, like the color of my skin. And then I realized, there it is. That has happened to me once. That's white privilege. I'm privileged to have only dealt with judgment based on my external appearance once in my life, thanks to having won the genetic lottery and wound up with this color of skin. So when people say, hey, there's institutionalized racism, there's prejudice in the world, rather than going, I'm not racist, how is this my problem? I'm now someone who leans in and says, what can I do to make a difference?